Everybody, we're gathered on a very, very important topic today, but before we address this issue, unfortunately, we have some sad news this morning. One of our brave highway officers, NYPD, died this morning on his way to work. I want to tell you up front, we're not divulging the name at this point because all family members have not been notified. But this is a very painful day for all of us. A brave police officer who serves us and who we have lost so early in his life, and is a very, very painful moment for all of us. So again, today, when you see members of the NYPD, please extend your condolences to them. It's going to be a tough day for all of them. And our thoughts and prayers are with the family, and we'll have more information later at the appropriate time. But I'd like everyone to please bow your heads in a moment of silence. Thank you very much. And one more matter, also a painful one, but one that comes with a bigger message as well. Today, all across this city, and particularly in Staten Island, people are very deeply mourning the death of Janine Camarata. And all over this city, you will see people taking a stand against domestic violence, wearing purple symbols to send a message of solidarity with all the survivors of domestic violence, but also to show our resolve to take on this scourge, all of us as a city. Janine, beloved in her family, in her community, in her school, a first grade teacher, devoted herself to helping others, devoted herself to children and their futures. It's a very, very painful moment that we're all focused on today. If we think about her life, but also take inspiration from her. And I want to just say our hearts go out to her family, to her friends, but also particularly to her colleagues at PS 29 in Castleton Corners in Staten Island. To all the teachers, all the staff at PS 29, we stand in solidarity with you today. I know it's a very tough day. Thinking about someone whose smile lit up the room just a few short weeks ago and now is gone. And I think for the kids, obviously, it's particularly tough. I know a lot is being done by Chancellor Carranza and the DOE to make sure there's a lot of support there for the children and for the whole school community and for the parents. So we remember Janine, and we devote ourselves today to fighting domestic violence. And a reminder, domestic violence does not discriminate based on age or race or gender or economic status. This is a problem that takes many forms, but all of them are bad. And we need to be active and strong, not ever look the other way, but stand up and speak out and report what we see so we can get help to folks who need it. Just like to ask also for a moment of silence in honor of Janine. Thank you, everyone. And now I'd like Araceli Jimenez to come up to start our plan program for the day.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor de Blasio. My name is Araceli Jimenez. I am 22 years old, and I grew up right here in Brooklyn, actually on 48th Street, right down there. And I am a digital organizer with the Sunrise Movement. But really today, first and foremost, I'm here primarily as a young person who is really, really scared for her future when faced with a daunting challenge as big as the climate crisis. Because the IPCC report gives us 12 years to transform our economy and our society away from fossil fuels, to lower our CO2 emissions to a place where we can have a future where we can live dignified lives. And I'm 22, so in 12 years, I will be 34. And it's really hard to think about this because if we continue on our current trajectory. When I celebrate my 34th birthday, I will probably be a little more concerned about whether the air I'm breathing is poisoning me, or whether the water I'm drinking is actually safe to consume. But even as I share that fear with everyone today, it's important to think that even the chance to worry about that future as something far off is in itself kind of a privilege, because right now the kids in the South Bronx are breathing in air with record levels of CO2. Right now, the children in Flint haven't had clean water for 5 years, and their brains are permanently damaged from the lead. So we have to remember that this is a crisis right now. And it's no longer a burden that's going to be shouldered by some hypothetical future generation. This is a crisis that is being felt by people my age and younger right now, today. And the worst part, you know, the real slap in the face is that we have known about this crisis for decades, for at least 20 years before I was even born, before I was even on this planet. And we also know who our opposition is. We know who the enemy is. We know who is responsible for this crisis. We know who has been buying off our politicians in the federal government. We know who has been spreading misinformation. We know who has funded smear campaigns that have stamped down even state-level legislation that was meant to tackle this crisis. We know who has been driving the oil industry and the plastic industry that has made pollution skyrocket over the past generation. And like so many other young people that are growing up with climate change as a really stark reality in our lives today, I'm not afraid to name that enemy. We know that the people responsible for this crisis are the fossil fuel billionaires and CEOs who have literally spent their entire careers protecting and growing their wealth and their companies and these extractive industries at the expense of our planet and our lives. And when we're faced with an opposition like that, when we're faced with an administration that continuously refuses to acknowledge that this crisis even exists, it's our responsibility to take action where we can. And for that reason, I'm so thankful that so many other young people like me are rising up to take action, whether it's going on strike just a month ago, or whether it's starting recycling programs in their local communities or in their schools, whether it's starting composting programs in their local schools and communities, or whether it's pressuring your state legislators to, take action, or whether it's, welcoming our mayors to take action with us, because we know that we are at a critical point in our country's history. Right? With this 12-year deadline, we are at a point where we have a choice, a really, really clear choice. We can either honestly, the choice is this. We can either give up, or we embrace our greatest, or we embrace courage, and we embrace bravery in the face of this crisis. And so, to be introducing Mayor de Blasio at this event, I'm proud to embrace bravery and courage with him and to make changes where we can. And so thank you everyone for listening, and thank you to Mayor de Blasio for, really listening to what the people crave in terms of climate action. And we know that this is just the beginning, and I look forward to the future actions that the city will take to tackle this crisis. Thank you.
Well done. Well done. Araceli, I want to thank you. I hope everyone heard when Araceli put the 12 years in the context of her own life. And my children are almost exactly the same age. And to hear it put that way, that by the time you're only in your 30s, your life may be upended the danger to this planet may be so severe that we're feeling it every single day in even worse ways. It makes it very personal, it makes it very real, and it makes it very urgent. We have to act constantly. And I want to pick up on the last point Araceli said. This is one action today, and there must be many more, and they must be frequent, they must be intense, they must be everywhere. But particularly important to me, that we very consciously wanted to give Araceli a platform because we better start listening to the new leadership coming up. We better start listening to their urgency and their clear sense of who did this to us and what we have to do to change it. Araceli, thank you for saying very plainly who the villain is here. Because sometimes in life, it is really clear. And the villain here is big oil. Fossil fuel industry did this to us. They did it knowingly. We have to come to grips with that, and we haven't yet as a nation. We have all been put in harm's way because an industry wanted more and more profit. Let's be clear. Big oil companies knew they were poisoning the earth. They knew it, and they hid the information. Let's be clear. The big oil companies know that their actions are exacerbating global warming every single day. They use all their power, all their money to keep us hooked on fossil fuels. In fact, every day they're planning to get us more hooked on fossil fuels. And they are destroying our lives in the process. And why, my friends? Simply to make a buck. That's exactly what's happening here. It's dangerous and it's unacceptable, and we won't stand for it. We're not going to talk about it the way we used to talk about it. We're going to talk about it the way Araceli talked about it, with the urgency and the anger and the resolve that we see in the leaders of the next generation. So let me be very clear about what we're doing today. Today, we say no to plastics. We say no to fossil fuels. We say yes to a better and fairer future. I want to say that this work has progressed because so many people care. We're going to be doing new things all the time. We're going to be doing things that would have been considered impossible, beyond reach, even just a few years ago, but it's because so many people have stood up. To all the environmental advocates and activists who are here, you have led the way. You've made ideas that once seemed out of reach possible. To all the disability advocates who are here, your leadership has helped us to solve the problem the right way, and your strong voices have helped us come up with the right policies. We thank you. And the members of my administration, I have seen the passion and the energy that you have all put into this effort. I want to thank all of you for your focus and your resolve. I don't hear members of my team say what we can't do. I hear them always looking for the next thing we can do. Special thanks to our DCAS Commissioner, Lizette Camillo, and our Acting Commissioner of Sanitation, Steve Costas, for all that their agencies are doing in this effort. Now, I hope today, when New Yorkers hear about this, they take it personally. I want people to take it personally. I want people to remember the day that we came to consciousness in this city, the day Hurricane Sandy hit. I always say there were very few climate change deniers left after Hurricane Sandy in this town, because we lost our fellow New Yorkers, and we saw lives destroyed, homes destroyed, neighborhoods destroyed because of global warming caused by fossil fuels. Climate change is the existential threat. And we have to understand that plastics is inherently a big part of the problem. 99% of these products are derived from fossil fuels. And here's a simple way to think about it. 1 ounce of plastic creates 1 ounce of carbon dioxide. Every single time we purchase something plastic, we're taking a step in the wrong direction. Here in this city, sanitation department collects 36 million pounds of single-use plastic foodware from our homes every year. 36 million pounds. It's just unacceptable. It's not something we can afford to do anymore. Today, I will be signing an executive order to end the city's purchase of unnecessary single-use plastic foodware, and this executive order takes effect immediately because this crisis is happening right now. I'm talking about a whole variety of things that somehow we got used to, but we really don't need anymore. Plastic straws, plates, plastic bowls, plastic forks and knives, spoons, the child of knives and spoons, sporks. Oh, no, sorry, it's child of forks and spoons, sporks. I got it wrong, the child of forks and spoons. And plastic cups. All those things we have alternatives for. City agencies will shift to compostable or reusable materials by the end of 2019. So by the end of this year, that shift will happen. And we will reduce our single-use plastic foodware by 95% right away. Now, I want to be very clear. There are some important exceptions. There will still be plasticware for medical uses, for emergency uses, and for those who need them, including people with disabilities who have that particular need. So we have to be very clear about the exceptions, and we're going to make sure those exceptions are honored. But the vast majority of those plastics can go, and they can go quick. We're also going to be working with the City Council to take the next step, to pass legislation to expand this effort to the private sector, and we intend to pass that legislation by the end of this year. We not only need to stop using plastic foodware as the city government, we need to get plastic foodware out of restaurants, out of stores. We need to get it out of our lives. And we'll be working with the council to get that done. This is part of a series of actions, and you're going to be seeing a lot more. Here in this city, we led the fight to get rid of plastic bags. Here in this city, we led the fight, and we succeeded in getting rid of styrofoam. We were one of the first cities to say we would honor the Paris Agreement and cut emissions 80% by 2050, regardless of what our federal government does. But we're also going farther. We are suing the big oil companies that did this to us, and they should pay for what they did to the people of this city. We are divesting our pension fund dollars from fossil fuel industries. $5 billion we are taking away from the fossil fuel industries. We are investing billions more in renewable energy. Take away from the bad, give to the good. That's what we're doing. But today, this step alone that we're taking today and we're announcing will reduce the city's carbon emissions by 500 tons per year. It will move us closer to zero waste in our landfills. It will move us closer to having a day when Araceli and generations after her can live in peace, knowing that their earth is healthy and safe for them. A few words in Spanish. El cambio climático es una amenaza de importancia crucial, y los plásticos son una gran parte de ese problema. Con la orden ejecutiva de hoy, nuestras agencias ya no pueden comprar envases y cubiertos plásticos de uso individual. Vamos a mantener reservas limitadas para uso médico y para personas con discapacidades. Con este paso cerramos una puerta a los plásticos y abrimos otra a un futuro más justo y mejor para todos. And with that, before I invite up some of our other luminaries, it is time to sign this executive order. And there you have it, everyone. So, we take inspiration from colleagues around the world who are doing good and important things. And we're all in this together. This is not just something for people to think about in New York or even the United States of America. When it comes to making these changes, we're working with partners all over the world. And our fellow mayors are often the ones who lead the way and get things done. So we are really proud and honored here today to have the mayor of Amsterdam with us, a city known to do so many things in an innovative way. Her city banned single-use plastics from commercial events and municipal purchases last year. And mayors always turn to each other for ideas, and we gently borrow them from each other. We don't like to say we steal them. We gently borrow them from each other to make our cities better and make the globe better. So my honor to introduce the mayor of Amsterdam, Femke Halsema.
Thank you so very much for your very kind words. And let me first, on behalf of the people of Amsterdam, send my condolences for the loss of two beloved citizens. And yes, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Mayor de Blasio, thank you for inviting me. I think you're addressing a very important and urgent issue here today. As you all know, plastic doesn't decay. It pollutes our soil and oceans forever. More recently, scientists proved that particles of plastic are found even in human beings through the food and water we drink. So by polluting the environment, we are also polluting ourselves and our children. Mayor de Blasio, we salute you in taking these bold measures. Thank you so very much. The city of Amsterdam, on a smaller scale, as you know, made a similar choice. In our offices at City Hall, you will only see wooden forks, sporks, and paper cups. And we also banned plastic cups from all of our commercial festivals in the city. And if you ever go to Amsterdam, trust me, you will see we have a lot of those in summer. Yes. So you can imagine it makes a huge difference. We are all in this together, and it's good of you to emphasize. Bottles and plastic, they spoil our youth and our next generations, but our bottles and plastic waste in the Netherlands and the United States wash ashore around the globe. And cities have to take responsibility and can set an example. And today, Mayor de Blasio is doing so. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well done. Thank you very, very much. Yeah, no, you have to go. I know Mayor has to leave us, but I just want to say, Mayor, thank you, and also thank you for not referring to us as New Amsterdam. We appreciate that very much. All right. So, as I said, many architects of these actions we're taking today, and a lot more to come, and one of the leaders in our administration who has been so focused, so energetic, and is seen around the country as an expert on what cities can do to make a change, our Chief Climate Policy Advisor and One NYC Director, Dan Zerilli. not made of plastic. It's okay.
Thank you, Mayor de Blasio. It's a real honor to be here today, standing with everyone as we take another step in our fight against climate change and against the big oil companies that have caused our climate crisis. We all know that burning fossil fuels is the single largest contributor to human-caused climate change. Well, there's another aspect that we're also today confronting. Right now, 6% of the global oil market is used to create plastic products, and fossil fuel companies are expected to invest another $160 billion nationally over the next 5 years into new facilities to produce raw material for everyday plastics. We are quite literally going to drown from everything the fossil fuel companies are doing to us. So this site holds particular significance for me. It was one of the very first projects that I worked on when I joined city government way back in 2004. And it's just a thrill to be here to see it in action. It's a truly world-class recycling facility serving our city, and it easily beats out the prior use that was on this pier, which was just storing cars. Even this facility, though, demonstrates the limits of recycling and the necessity of ending our reliance on single-use plastic foodware. In the machinery that you can see here today, these items, the straws, the sporks, the forks, all of it, it's incredibly difficult to recycle. Some are too small, end up falling through the machinery that's meant to sort the recyclables. Others are covered with food waste that can contaminate an otherwise clean load of recyclable materials. Many are made of materials lower grades of plastic that make them particularly hard to recycle, even if they're clean and make it through the sorting equipment. And finally, for far too many people, they're simply seen as trash, and they just are sent through the normal garbage and are deposited in landfills and are with us for thousands of years. And you've heard the impacts on our marine life, on our bodies, from what all that's doing to us. We can do better. So this executive order gets to the heart of the problem in city government to remove these items from the vast majority of uses in the first place. And by ending our reliance on these items, we will remove 1.1 million pounds of plastic from landfills. Not only that, by tackling the unnecessary single-use plastics in our lives, we'll reduce those carbon emissions, cut down on the plastic pollution that litters our streets, clogs our waterways, and spoils our oceans and marine life. And it's important to note that we're doing this in a way that strikes the right balance between bold climate action and respecting the needs of those with disabilities. So how are we doing this? That executive order that the mayor just signed stipulates a few things. First, agencies are going to be submitting a plan within 120 days on how they're going to phase out their unnecessary use of these single-use plastics. Then they're going to implement those plans. It starts with the cessation of any new contracts for unnecessary single-use plastic foodware, other than to maintain that small stock of items to be provided upon request. And you will start to see the results of this by the end of the year. That means sometime very soon, the next time you visit a loved one at a city hospital or attend your local community board meeting, you'll see new plant-based compostable foodware. That could mean paper straws, that could mean bamboo plates, corn-based cups, for instance. Our teams are going to be finalizing those purchasing standards very soon, and you're going to see that come to life by the end of the year. So all of this, part of preparing New York City for the risks of climate change, it means helping to lead the globe to a future free from the reliance on fossil fuels. It's one of the greatest challenges of our time, and the future of our city, our planet, and the next generation depend on it. And as we continue to deliver on the commitments from our own city's long-term plans, you'll be hearing about even more ways that New York City is leading the nation, serving as a global model, and partnering with other cities around the globe in sustainable development as we're building the fairest big city in America. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
As Dan said, we really gave careful thought to how to make sure that this approach was fair. And we were greatly aided in that process by a strong, strong voice, and that's Commissioner Victor Calisi. His voice is heard constantly in City Hall in terms of how to live out our vision of fairness and make sure that people with disabilities in the city are always respected, their needs are always addressed. I want to thank him and his team for their intense work on this and so many other initiatives, making sure that folks who need plastic straws will have them, but that so many people who don't need them won't, and that's the balance we're striking today. It's my honor to introduce the Commissioner of the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities, Victor Calisi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just really think we should advocate not to have sporks because they just don't work. They just don't work.
An idea that just didn't.
Yeah, it just doesn't work. But I want to thank my office for all the work that they're doing, and Eddie Friedman, who's is the straw advocate and plastic advocate in her office. Thank you. But more importantly, the advocates. You got Edith Prentice from Taxis for All, Valerie Joseph from Brooklyn Center for Independence of the Disabled, and Jose Hernandez from United Spinal Association. They really have driven this and made sure that the city includes them in everything they have to offer, and that's what we should be doing because that's our job. I want to thank everyone, our city aging partners for everything that they're doing, because people with disabilities are environmentalists too, and we help the earth as much as we can, but the reality is some people cannot use currently available alternatives and need plastic straws and foodware. For example, people with multiple sclerosis, people with high-level spinal cord injuries, people with Parkinson's disease, people with ALS, and that can be some of your grandmothers or grandparents or family members that just need it. It just makes sense. And unfortunately, currently available non-plastic alternatives don't stand up to that use. They will crack or they will break, and this is just some of the examples that'll happen. So still, many folks who rely on single-use and plastic at this moment can still use them. And for this, if you need a straw, really, this is the way it works. If you need a straw, you need something plastic, you're just going to ask for it, and you will get it. And that's just the way it works. Because the vast majority of people who do not need a plastic straw or other foodware will be just fine with alternatives. They'll use what's provided and probably never know the difference. And we heard the disabled community loud and clear. And New York City is really leading the way to create a truly inclusive policy that reduces plastic use while keeping everybody's needs in mind. And then we could really concentrate on when we have this in order, which we do today, and now we can really concentrate on working to get people with disabilities jobs throughout our city. And really, this makes our city one step closer to being the most accessible city in the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Victor. In the City Council, we've seen real leadership on this issue and a focus on doing things differently to protect our environment, the sponsor of 2 bills that would end the unnecessary use of plastic straws and other single-use plastic items, and someone who has been passionate and focused on this topic, Councilmember Rafael Espinal.
Thank you, Mayor de Blasio. I couldn't be more prouder to be a New Yorker today, thanks to your leadership. We really are setting the bar high here in New York for across the country. You know, the EU did take the lead on this issue, but today as New York, we're saying to the rest of the 49 states that it's time that we get rid of plastic. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it. And just to put Aracella's age in perspective, I am 34 years old, so she'll be my age in 12 years, and hopefully you'll be up here, continue fighting on behalf of the planet and in your role is in government. We live in an age where almost every part of our daily lives seems to be chipping away at the health of our planet. Every day we pump more toxins into our air, plow more pipelines through our land, and dump more plastics into our oceans. Every study points to our planet becoming unable to sustain human life if we don't reverse our ways today. We have the opportunity to decide whether or not we're going to accept these grim predictions about our planet as our future, or whether we're going to do everything in our power to change it. Today, we choose to put our planet over pollutants. Today, we choose to put our planet over our wasteful convenience. Today, we choose to put our planet over plastic. I'm proud to join the mayor in taking a stand against the rising tide of plastic pollution. We throw away straws, cups, forks, without a second thought. After a single use, we cast away trash that can take centuries to decompose. We no longer have that kind of time. If we don't stop today, by 2050, we will have more plastic than fish in our oceans. Banning single-use plastics is going to slightly alter the lives of almost every New Yorker. But the smallest consumer change from the largest city in the country is going to have a positive ripple effect across the globe. It can be easy to drown in cynicism, but reducing New York City's plastic pollution is just the latest step in creating a model sustainable city that can be replicated around the world. Next week, we're going to be passing legislation in the City Council that mandates green roofs and slashes our carbon emissions. We have bills in the Council to tackle food waste, protect bird migrations. We're tackling climate change from every angle. I look forward to working with the mayor and passing my bill in the council to face all single-use plastics from our city. And today I'm proud to join him in making history by ending the city's contract with single-use plastics. Thanks again, Mr. Mayor. I'm really proud.
Now, just in case you hear from people that there aren't new items that will work, first of all, here's something from, some of you may remember these. I grew up with these paper straws. They work fine. Again, we're going to always make sure that there's that reserve amount of plastic for those who truly need it. But for the vast majority of folks, these paper straws will work. This is a plate that's not made of plastic, but it works most amazingly. Do we know exactly what this is made of? No? We're going to find out, but it's not plastic, and it works. So, cornstarch? Cornstarch. I didn't know you could do this with corn, but you can. So, but the point is, it's all happening now. All the products we need are being made in a healthier fashion, and it's time for us to lead the way. And with New York City taking action, these products are going to become more and more popular, not just here, but all over the country. And it's important to recognize that. And the biggest city in America says it's time to change to these environmentally friendly products. It's going to give everyone else a message that it's a smart thing to do for our children, our grandchildren, for our Earth. So with that, want to hear questions from the media on this announcement. Anna.
How much does the city currently spend on contracts for single-use plastics? And do you guys have an estimate for how much new contracts might cost, and if there's a reduction in the cost or an increase?
So, Lizette, is that you or who? And I'm going to preface before our DCAS commissioner comes up and say, we anticipate in so many different areas where you're seeing change, whether it's renewable energy, whether it is compostable products. Short term, there often is a greater cost, but we believe as the market evolves, that cost is going to come down quite a bit. But we believe where there is some greater cost, it's a cost worth paying.
So citywide currently, we spend about $1 million in single-use plastics. We will be issuing new contracts, working with the Department of Sanitation to develop those bid specs, and those contracts will be awarded to the lowest bidder. So we don't have a price currently on how much it will cost. We anticipate some increase, but we already have some agencies moving towards that, so we know that we can do it and not break the bank.
Cost, the amount of plastic, like the single-use plastics that you guys are going to retain, how much do you think that would cost?
So I'm going to start, and you can jump in. I mean, again, I think it's partly we're going to have to see how everything else works out, obviously, but the goal here, as I said, about 95% of the single-use plastic won't be needed. So we're retaining about 5%. We can get you the exact numbers, but everything's going to evolve as we go through the new contracting process. But it's a pretty small cost in the end. Please.
Follow up on the carve out for people with medical issues and disabilities. The press release actually says that anyone can request, like the old school plastic straws and forks. Do you guys anticipate people doing that, or do you think that most people who do request that will have disabilities and will actually need to use them?
Yeah, this is my very strong view, and any of my colleagues can speak to this too. Basically, plastic is pushed on us all the time. That's the way things have evolved in our country. So you order a drink, and here's your plastic straw, whether you ask for it or not. You know, all sorts of things are just put forward. You know, you go to get takeout, and they throw in every conceivable thing, whether you need it or not. I mean, it's a throwaway culture, and it has to end. So I think the number one thing that's going to happen is when it's not offered, people are going to do fine without it. I think that's the number one phenomenon here. I think that the folks who go out of their way to ask are going to be people who really need it. There may be some exceptions. There may be people who have some great nostalgia for plastic straws, but I think that's going to be pretty rare. And I just think it's one of those things, after a couple of years, people are not going to remember what it was like as much, and they're going to be fine with the new way. Yes, Marcia.
Mr. Mayor, I wondered if you were inspired to do this by the Green Deal that's being pushed in Congress by Andrea Ocasio-Cortez and others. And if you go on the campaign trail, will you be able to point to this as an example of something where New York is setting the way and an example for other cities to follow?
I am a huge fan of the Green New Deal idea. But no, this idea predates that for sure. We've been working on things like this for quite a while. If you look at different actions that I summarized, no, in this city, there's been plenty of energy and focus on taking the next step and the next step to address global warming. But I really am happy to see the growing positive response to the Green New Deal because, as Araceli said, the Green New Deal is focused on that 12-year timeline that we all have to take really, really seriously. I think it's very productive. I don't theorize about the campaign trail. We'll have that conversation at the appropriate time. But the fact is, these actions by New York City are helping other places to act. When we divested from fossil fuels, we got interest from all over the country because we're the financial capital of America, and we said, you can do this. And it works. And other folks felt that gave them the space to do it as well. And we're seeing it on a lot of these things. When we take this action today, other cities and states are going to look at it and say, okay, this can be done. We can ban these plastics.
Like the way you've always lived your life. I mean, you've recycled for a very long time. Are these the things, the principles that you live by, and how will this change how you personally?
It already has been, and a very fine question. I appreciate it. So I am an obsessive recycler. We can get you a group of people from City Hall. There's some over here who can be interviewed at length on this topic because whenever I see someone not recycling, I stop to give them an informative lecture on the topic. And if people put the recycling in the wrong bin, I have been known to help correct the situation. So I do that at City Hall. I do that at Gracie Mansion. I turn off lights all the time. For some reason, people like to leave the lights on in the Blue Room long after the press conference is over. So I go and turn off the lights in the Blue Room, ask people in a very helpful, energetic fashion why they didn't turn off the lights in the Blue Room. Late at night at City Hall, I go around turning off all the lights, showing people where the switches are to turn off the lights. I do it at Gracie Mansion all the time. I'm kind of obsessive. And if you look back to the first year of administration, you will see the excellent family composting video. It was considered a modern classic. I've been out there. People's the number one thing they ask me about the composting video. Yeah. You cried the first time you saw it, I think. But so yeah, this is very much who I am. This is who I was when I was a student at NYU. I was involved in a lot of environmental causes. But in terms of the other part, yeah, honestly, when the movement began around banning plastic straws, it made me stop and think, why am I accepting this plastic straw? I go to a fast food place or wherever, they just put it down. And so I've been giving it back or just putting it aside because we don't need it. We just don't need it. Please, Juliet.
Mr. Mayor, in the deli, you get a plastic container.
Yes.
So are you addressing that at some point as well?
What we're going to work with the council on, and council member, feel free to jump in, is we want to start changing behavior in the private sector. And we want to go as quickly as we can because we just don't need these products. So, we have to do it in stages. But yeah, it's just, first of all, there's just so much waste to begin with. I mean, think about how many things we get we don't even use. You go and get your egg sandwich, and they put in the multiple packets of ketchup, and the salt, and the pepper, and the packet that has the napkin, the food, the sweat. We don't need all that. And then on top of that, all the times that straw is just given to you, even when you don't ask for it. And then people sort of say, oh, okay, I guess I'll use it. So we have to change that, but also we have to get as much as possible people away from a lot of those products and into the environmentally friendly products. So we're going to figure out the way to do that. I like when the public sector leads by example. We're this week obviously starting an intensive discussion on the retrofit of buildings, but we said years ago we were retrofitting all our public buildings. So, practice what you preach, physician, heal thyself. Same thing here. We're saying the city of New York is going to show you it can be done. We don't need these things anymore. And when we go to the private sector with some new rules, it will be things we've applied to ourselves already. Julia.
On straws, you did say in your State of the City that you plan to ban them, and we've been talking about it here today, but can you give us more of a timeline? Is this, forefront in your agenda?
Yeah, this year. Okay. This year, working with the council. And again, ban the unnecessary ones. We want to be very clear about the ability of people who need them to get them. But again, we believe that reduction will be about 95% when all is said and done. Yes?
So obviously the shift you're hoping for here is for more composting to occur. But this is the second year that you haven't included funding to expand curbside collection of organic waste, and composting isn't required in all city-owned or private buildings. So are you gonna start channeling more funds toward composting initiatives and the curbside collection of organic?
Stay tuned. We have something up our sleeve.
This year?
I just said stay tuned. We have something up our sleeve. I don't know what's unclear about that. I think thought that was very clear. No. We're working on a way to move that forward in a big way. But we'll speak more to that soon.
Curbside collection or just organic waste?
You can ask any variation on a theme. Just stay tuned. We got to have news for you other days, too. Go ahead, Yoav.
Just wondering if you can confirm the full list of what constitutes the exemptions to this, because you said you're banning all unnecessary.
Right. So there's the folks with disabilities, and Victor can certainly talk about what kind of disabilities in particular lead to people needing those plastic straws. There are medical uses. We understand a medical environment. Urgency and sanitary issues, we're going to be mindful of that. Emergency services, there's certain situations where we want to provide some flexibility. But again, we believe that's only about 5% of the amount being used now. Do you want to speak to specific, just to help folks understand a little more?
Yeah, I mean, there are all types of people are allergic to a lot of different things. If we put out a latex straw, that's a problem for a person with spina bifida. So we have to be cognizant of what types are available, but mostly a lot of people still need that plastic. So I mean, the plastic runs across the board. I mean, if you need a plastic fork or spoon for someone, then that should be available upon their request. But I mean, like the mayor said, I think it makes sense that a lot of people, if they want it, they'll ask for it. And the problem is everything everyone gives you is excessive. But we just have to be cognizant that it's available when it's needed and when it's requested.
The city passes out water bottles and reusable bags. Do you guys anticipate ever passing out reusable straws? I know that there's some metal ones that people use.
We are looking at a whole host of questions around reusable products. This is something I've talked about in terms of getting rid of plastic bags and paper bags, that we've got to come up with some kind of option for folks of limited means. And we're looking at everything. We'll be looking at plastic bottles. You're going to see a number of things coming out.
Why isn't Birdie here?
Why isn't
here?
Birdie.
You know, the environmental mascot?
Dan's got it.
Where's Birdie, damn it, Dan? Dan? Where is Birdie?
Did you guys fire him? Like, what's going on?
Birdie works behind the scenes. You see him on all of our digital campaigns. He's the mascot for our Green YC campaigns for environmental sustainability.
Listen, Dan.
Everyone loves Birdie.
I want Birdie in my office pronto. I want to know why Birdie wasn't here, damn it. Marcia?
Mayor, will this reduce your sanitation costs?
We'll reduce our sanitation costs. Who wants to speak to that?
What did you have to do with...
Commissioner?
Thank you for the question. So initially, although the makeup of all those plastic items makes up about just under 1% of the total volume, it still equals millions of items. So upfront, the initial impact will probably be minimal in terms of our processing.
Yes,
yeah. So going forward, do you see with the reduction in this kind of material, like city composts in locations, or where sanitation would be dumping into composts? Like, where do you see that going?
Well, composting is already happening. So are you saying on a bigger scale? Okay, so composting is already happening. The goal is to go much farther with it. Maybe just for informational purposes, you could help folks understand what's happening now with composting and how you use the compost.
So currently citywide, we have 23 districts that are on the compost program. And that material that's collected, a good portion of that is actually turned right into compost material, the food waste. So that is being distributed through various compost givebacks. And if any community groups are interested, they're more than welcome to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to provide them with compost for neighborhood gardens or any other projects that might be happening.
Individuals?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Do you know, by any chance, which agency purchases the most single-use plastics?
I'm assuming it is DOE. Does anyone? Okay, I think it's DOE, but we'll confirm that to you today. Rich.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'm taking notes with a plastic pen, and
Damn it, Rich.
I noticed that you were
Security.
I noticed you were.
I think if we dragged you away, it would be an excellent visual to say to all Americans and New Yorkers, you can't use those plastic pens anymore.
I noticed you were taking notes with a plastic pen. It appeared to me, anyway.
I don't know what you mean, Rich. I don't. You can search me and. No, feel free. Come over and search me. You won't find a plastic pen.
I'm wondering, given the almost universal nature of this plastic, is this sign up behind you made out of plastic, do you think, or do you think that's some other material?
That's an excellent question. We'll find out. First of all, I want to say you're raising actually, I think, a much deeper point, and I appreciate it, that slowly but surely we have to move away from plastic in the smart way. There's some things that are harder and some things are easier. Right now, like if you maybe back in time, 10, 15 years, the idea of, en masse moving away from plastic foodware would have seemed really challenging. Now there's tons of different options, and they're very, they're high quality, they're affordable. And I think you're going to see that all over in different areas of consumer need. In terms of what the city government does, I think we have to constantly look deeper about how we can stop using plastic in a variety of forms. But it's going to take a while to deprogram all that. As to the sign, I don't know if someone here is an expert on the sign. Right now, I don't see something that looks plastic, but we will verify that to you. Who hasn't gone? Gloria.
Mr. Mayor, you said $1 million per year is currently spent on plastic single.
Around $1 million.
Around $1 million, and that's across all city agencies. What else is considered single-use plastic other than plastic utensils, and are there other?
Who wants to speak to it? Who's got? Lizette, you got the definition?
Is it strictly just foodware, if you will?
Yeah, foodware. So forks, knives, plates, cups.
So you would still, under this executive order, agencies would still be able to purchase. I'm trying to think of another plastic product.
So currently it's for this type of use, and we're currently working on setting up the contracts for agencies to purchase off of that. I think this is the first step, and as we proceed and look at other items to address, we will.
And the $1 million right now is being spent also on foodware?
Foodware, yes.
Mr. Mayor, the takeout food business depends heavily on plastic containers for their food. I wonder, in this bill that you're considering to go to commercial establishments, what you will do in terms of the rules. Will it be optional? Will it be mandatory? What are you looking at?
We're very sensitive to the fact that our businesses in the food industry, especially small businesses, they have very thin margins. We want to respect that. We want to make sure that they can keep doing their good work. They're crucial to the city. But that said, we sort of went down this road with styrofoam. If you listen to the styrofoam industry, the sky was going to fall, and there would be no way in the world to replace styrofoam. Guess what? They were lying. There was plenty of ways to replace styrofoam, and increasingly cost-effective. When you buy more of something, the cost goes down. So we want to get these options out there more fully. So we're going to figure out the legislation. Obviously, we'll have hearings. The City Council will have hearings to listen to different folks who are affected. But we've already been to this movie. If you leave the status quo in place, it endangers the earth. You have to make change. The good news is, as you make the change, the cost goes down, and it can work for everyone. So we'll strike that balance. See if there's anything else on this announcement. Media questions? Media questions, this announcement? Media?
I know you were saying that you want to involve young people in, I guess, like the environmental portion of it.
Yes.
How do you expect, or how do you hope that young people could be involved in helping with this topic?
I think this is about fundamental culture change. And young people are just doing a better job than any previous generation of figuring it out. It's just a fact. For example, my trademark. I didn't used to do this. When I was public advocate, I was still using plastic water bottles, and I thought that was normal. And I had like a bunch of plastic water bottles in my car, and I'd be driving around, and I'd drink my water bottle, and I'd throw it in the back, and I'd recycle it. And I thought, wow, isn't that great? Until one day, I got a total, like, glaring lecture from my daughter Kiara saying, you know, that doesn't work anymore. You don't do that anymore. That's wrong. Do this. And she like holds up one of these to me, and she says, you should be doing this. And my first response, I cannot tell a lie, was, oh, that's not going to taste good. It's metal. It's going to taste like metal. And she's like, too bad. You got to do it. You'll get used to it. And so I followed the instructions, and I changed to this, and now I wouldn't ever think of, carrying around the plastic bottle anymore. So I think it is just natural. I think it's, one of the things I say about the generation coming up, it's a survival issue for them. It really is. It's not abstract. I think for us who came up before the recognition of global warming, we all somehow think business as usual can work because that's what we grew up with. I think for the newer generation, they already know the status quo is going to kill them. So they're a lot more urgent about making the change. So I think if you say any of the things we're talking about, just get people away from plastics in their lives, recycle more, turn off lights more, all use mass transit more, all the different things. I think the new generation is going to help people to learn to do that and move policies that will help that.
I'm only 20, so I've spent a lot of my childhood talking about turn the lights off and be like conservative when it comes to this kind of stuff,
right.
And like not to to recycle and all these things. But will it be actually taken seriously this time? I feel like, which we've always taken it somewhat seriously, but I feel like as young people we're seen as somewhat of jokes when it comes to this stuff. People don't take us as seriously. When I say, oh my God, it's so important that we use reusable products, people are like, oh, you're just a hippie, or like it's not important, or you don't know anything, you're too young to know what it's gonna do anyway. So like, do you think there'll be a culture shift with that as well?
It has to be, first of all, and I'm going to speak in Araceli. If you want to add in, you are more than welcome. There has to be, and I make the point about Sandy because it's true. I think when people, and we're seeing it now, these horrible floods in the Midwest, and we saw the wildfires in California, and just unbelievable things happening everywhere. Everyone who experiences it, they don't say, oh, something happened that never happened before, and it's not because of global warming. They say, oh my God, this is actually happening to us. So I think the consciousness is greatly moving, changing. And I think the voices of the young people are the voices of the prophets, right? At first they may be rejected, but they're going to be heard more and more because they have a lot to back it up. But also I would say to you, don't stop struggling. Just keep sounding that alarm, and more people are going to get it. And the persistence is needed. And also, is it really the previous generation's right to not take these actions and endanger your life and the next generation after you? I think we have to think about it that way too. Do you want to add?
Yeah, sure. I will say that that's a very valid concern. I've definitely, as a young person in organizing in my community, I've definitely felt that pushback, but we have to recognize that this country has a long, beautiful history of social movements that can really change the course of our politics, of our economy, of the way we interact with each other as people, the way we expand our civil rights. And so a lot of those social movements happened and were successful because of young people. And so when I hear someone who is very invested in the status quo tell me and other young people that I don't matter, it actually tells me that we're winning. Because they're scared of us, because they know that when young people are vocal, when they call out injustice, that we can really just create unbelievable social change. Because as young people, we're not held back by this experience of business as usual, this experience of being so entrenched with the status quo. We can see injustice, and we can have the foresight of alternatives.
Amen. Well said. Well said. Nicely done. Okay, anything else on this before we go to the topics? Yes, Gloria.
Mr. Mayor, for the councilman on the bill to require this from the private sector, how much support do you have in the council at this point? And have you heard from people in the business sector who usually say this is going to cost us more money, make our lives more difficult? I mean, how are you going to deal with to your point about big oil and money behind these.
Yeah, well, I would say that there is a cultural shift, and we have a very progressive council who has taken on tougher environmental policies, like what we're going to see next week stated when we pass the building emissions bills. So I see this as a natural next step. There is a consensus this needs to get done. We are working with great groups like the League of Conservation Voters, who are pushing my colleagues and holding them accountable as well. So I really don't see issues moving forward. And the bill actually mirrors what the EU did. And what the EU did was actually created this commission, and it'll be city agencies here, that would work at identifying which single-use plastics can be removed without creating a huge disturbance, and especially those plastics that have a viable alternative as well.
Amen. Yeah.
Do you support the council's bill that would opt in for the fine on the brown paper, on the paper bags?
I like the idea very much. We're going to look at the final details, but we have a lot of unity, the council and the mayoralty, on this issue. We got to get away from paper bags. We also have to make alternatives available to people that are reusable. So we're all working in the same direction, but we got some final details we have to work through. Rich.
Mr. Mayor, do you know that, you probably do know, that Lyndon Johnson used to walk through the White House turning the lights off?
I did not know that.
Do you think it's important for some future resident of the White House to do the same?
I think there's a lot of reasons why whoever's in the White House should do the things that will save us from global warming. What's that phrase about? I think we could apply this to the current occupant. The lights are on, but nobody's home. What is that? No, that's. But yeah, we have a president right now who is a global warming denier, and that's incredibly dangerous for the Earth. That has to change. But I agree that whoever has that job should model good behavior, and should have a great personal history of turning off lights and obsessively recycling. Last call on this topic. Okay, before I go to off topic, we have a momentous occasion here. I want you to turn to that direction. I want you to look. For the first time in his entire time working at City Hall, Eric Phillips is wearing an appropriately color-coordinated outfit that looks like something a modern professional would wear. This is his very last press conference. I find it stunning that he waited until the last press conference to actually dress correctly. But it's nice to see that someone has informed you of how to do that, Eric, and you really look quite good, and I hope you will do that in your fancy private sector job going forward. But Eric has brought such extraordinary energy and intelligence and insight to this role. It has been such a joy working side by side with him. I do have some critiques I'd like to offer. He has absolutely no taste in pizza. His understanding of pizza can only be called primitive. It's troubling. I condemn it. Even when he has left public service, if he says anything about pizza, I will attack it. I think that's a solemn responsibility I have. What else can we say? He loves his home state, truly loves his home state. That's a good thing. He has that Wisconsin chip on his shoulder. But now, with your Bucks and your Brewers, you should let the light in and be a little happier about life, okay? He likes cheese a lot. He's very consistent. Basically, there's always a tall glass of milk on his desk. Very all-American. But some of you may have seen from time to time he takes to Twitter and offers strong opinions and mixes it up. So I think in that way, we have said you have now become a true New Yorker because you mix it up and you do it with gusto. But Eric, you have done an absolutely outstanding job. Your teammates think the world of you, and we are going to sorely miss you. Job well done. Okay, now for just a special occasion for all off-topic, Eric Phillips will take the questions. Okay. It's my designated hitter, Gloria.
Mr. Mayor, the Department of Education said there are plans to reverse a policy that allows them to use a third-party vendor to send out mailings to parents in local neighborhoods. They say that if DOE prevents them from doing that, it will undercut their ability to inform parents about school options. Can you give us an update on what's happening with that?
Yeah, there's a discussion on that issue going on now, and no final details have been worked out to the best of my knowledge. There's a real issue that has been raised. It's been raised by many parents. When Chancellor Carranza and I had the 5 town hall meetings in the last few months with parent leaders, PTA leaders, and Community Education Council leaders around all 5 boroughs, and then we met with the CEC presidents around the city separately, we heard this all the time, the sense that there's a bit of an unfair playing field in the view of a lot of these parents, and that this information is put out there, and they raised a lot of concern. We're looking at that issue. And we have to come to a decision soon about how we have to handle it, but there's not a final decision.
About
that, in a way, I won't speak for the parents. You should really ask them, but I'll just try and summarize that. You know, a lot of information comes out from one part of the educational world, and it's not matched from other folks and other choices, and I think they feel there's some unfairness there. Julia.
The City Council would like to cut 20%, about $50 million from the Thrive Plan. What's your response to that?
Well, the City Council puts out their budget response, and it's the grounds for conversation, and that's always been the case. And look, I think what's clear about Thrive is it's reaching a huge number of New Yorkers. It's an absolutely necessary initiative. We have said that we're going to constantly look at how to improve it, double down on the areas that are working best. Some other areas may not be working as well. We'll make shifts. So we'll have a very productive conversation. The council is overwhelmingly supportive of Thrive as a philosophy and approach. But we're going to look at the details and see how we can keep doing better each year. Marsha.
Sure, first of all, I'd like to say
Bless you.
I've always thought that Eric was a spiffy dresser.
Wow. Okay, Marsha, we need to talk because you're the only person in New York City who has ever thought that. Now,
but I have an actual question.
wait a minute, I'm going to have to get over the shock for a moment. Can I just ask my colleagues, has anyone ever felt, and you have to be honest here, has anyone ever felt, you could like Eric, but that he is a spiffy dresser? Raise your hand if you ever felt sellouts. It's not what you say behind his, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead, Marsha.
Mayor, there has been a problem with
some days. That was the best you got. Go ahead.
NYC wind and the fact that it hasn't been reprogrammed. People are rushing to reprogram it. It's affecting lights, traffic lights, and police cars and license plate readers and all kinds of things. Why wasn't it picked up? Why wasn't it done on time? What's being done and what's the...
So the situation is being addressed. We take it very seriously. Now, I want to say, I've had this conversation with NYPD and with other agencies. There are definitely been some impacts. Thank God they are limited. They have not obviously had an impact on day-to-day life or the ability of the NYPD to do its job. So I want to put it in perspective. But it's not a good thing, and we need to fix it. And I believe the next few days we will have it resolved based on everything I've heard. We have to figure out why this happened. From my understanding, there's some global dynamics here that affect the situation. We have to understand what happened here and what was done right and what was done wrong, and make adjustments. So we'll know that after we address the immediate situation, we'll do that diagnostic and we'll see what we have to do differently.
We knew about this a year ago. Why did the city...
That's what I know, Marsha. I want to know that. I want to know exactly what was missed and how we're going to fix it. Job one right now is to get everything back online. And again, my understanding is that will happen over the next few days. But then we're going to do the diagnostic, figure out what was missed, and fix it. Yes?
The city is behind on the commitment it made last year to expand affordable housing for seniors. I'm curious if you can talk about why the city hasn't moved faster on that.
Well, all the affordable housing commitments have followed a similar pattern, which is, you start and build your approach, and then it takes off, and you see the numbers start to gallop. And that is the truth of the overall affordable housing plan. And we're at the all-time highest production we've seen in the history of New York City. And if you remember, year one, year two were solid, but nowhere near what we've seen the last year or two. So it speeds up rapidly. We will hit that goal. Willie.
In recent weeks, when you've been asked about possibly running for president, how you can do that when you have a city to manage, you have said, in effect, that shouldn't voters want somebody with this kind of management experience to run for president? Now we have a big management failure in the instance of NYC Win, the wireless network, where IT managers all over the world knew that this was coming and took the steps they needed to prepare, but New York City did not. And we had this crash of the system. How do you square that management failure with this idea that voters should want your kind of management experience?
Again, Willie, putting in perspective, I'm not going to speak to what voters should want because I'm not a candidate at this point. I want to speak to the bigger picture. This city, every day, is a place that does extraordinary things. What the NYPD has done in driving down crime, what our fire department every day does to keep us safe, what our sanitation department does in terms of the environment, but also addressing not only everyday needs, but snowstorms and other crises so effectively. You go down the list, you see so many things that work in this town. Certainly, our efforts to avert cyber attacks overall have been extraordinary and very effective. Sometimes there's going to be mistakes, and when we see a mistake, we address it very quickly. It's a government made up of human beings, but that doesn't mean that we take anything lightly. We see a mistake, we address it. Sometimes we have to make personnel changes or other things to address it. But I look at the overall picture of the city, safest big city in America, school system getting better and stronger, highest graduation rate we've ever had, pre-K for all, 3K on the way, most jobs we've ever had, biggest affordable housing program we've ever had, ahead of schedule. Those are, I think, very leading indicators of how well this city is working. Go ahead, Rich.
Mr. Mayor, apparently there's going to be a court challenge to the mandatory measles vaccination order.
We will beat them. Absolutely confident we'll beat them.
Yes. Are there any new or updated numbers on the issue? And also, have you seen any movement toward people getting the vaccination?
Our team will get you the numbers today. I think what's fair to say, and I want to thank everyone for their extensive reporting, I think the message got across, and we're certainly hearing back from folks in the community that it's penetrated very quickly, and we've sounded the alarm, and people are taking it seriously. The more I'm hearing, the more I understand that there's a very small group of strong anti-vax voices that have convinced a small number of parents of something that's just factually wrong. And now I think it's empowering, this action the city has taken is empowering other voices, community leaders. A lot of community leaders have been strongly with us from the beginning trying to help us get this done. And that's why when we talk about the example of Borough Park we talked about yesterday, Borough Park situation got addressed very rapidly because there weren't those kind of anti-vax voices, and the community leaders got the point across and things moved, and I think you're going to see more of that now. I think this is giving a lot of air support to folks on the ground who are trying to get people to come to grips with this.
Two questions on the NYC win. The first one is, are you able to give us a complete list of everything that's been impacted by the outages, I guess?
So we can get you more detail. I have asked the question. Several times over the last few days, and what I keep getting back is the central issue is the traffic signals, but it's not stopping the traffic signals from working, obviously. It was everyone who's driving around to these seas. It's impaired us from doing some of the things we normally do in terms of synchronization and changing the signals at different times of day and one thing or another, but it has not stopped us from allowing the city to keep moving, obviously. The license plate reading issue, that's real for sure. Now, we have other methodologies for addressing that, but the bottom line is it's a serious impact. It's not an overwhelming impact. I think most New Yorkers could safely say they didn't even know it happened in terms of their daily lives. But we got to fix it quickly, and I think it will be fixed next few days, and we got to make sure it never happens again.
And then on the front end, were you kind of involved in the city's preparation for it? Are you aware of kind of when they started trying to address the issue and kind of what team was put in place to handle it?
I want to separate, the thing I've been much more focused on has been the cyber issue. I've had a number of meetings with our cyber team, and again, I think they've done an exceptional job at averting cyber attacks. This is a different kind of issue, obviously. This was not a purposeful attack. This was a technical problem. I was not involved in the planning to how to deal with that. It was not something that came up to my level. But when we saw the problem start to emerge on Sunday, I was briefed right away, including by NYPD, and people put forward the measures they were going to take to fix it. And again, I'm comfortable this will be resolved quickly, and then we'll figure out how to make sure it doesn't happen in the future. Julia.
You received the Leadership Award at the Jewish Children's Museum Gala in Brooklyn last night. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But I'm told that you arrived about 30 minutes late, and...
You all love this question. It's just wrong, wrong, wrong. I don't know why you... I appreciate it, but it's just an unproductive question. In the real world of running the biggest city in America, there are schedule changes all the time. We communicated with the event organizers, and we said, the original window is such, there's some other things being taken care of at City Hall. Is there another window later on? They said, sure, come at this other time, and we came at the other time. It's part of life in modern government, and I just don't know why it's so hard for people to understand it. We make adjustments because we're in a very dynamic setting where there's new information, new issues coming up all the time. And when I'm at City Hall in a bunch of meetings and getting a lot of stuff done, I say, hey, I know I have a speaking engagement. Can we do it later on? Yeah, great. It was fine, and they were perfectly comfortable with it.
I know that there was the announcement you went from 7:30 to 8 o'clock. We received that. Did you get there at 8:30? Is that accurate?
I have no clue of the exact time I walked in the door. I know whatever we did was calibrated with the event organizers. I know the speaker before me went longer than planned. It was just, guys, if you really want to spend your time reporting on this, God bless America, it's a free country. But the point is, every time we do these things, we talk to the people running the events and we make adjustments with them. It's just normal. And I've been in government a long time, and this is how everyone does it. Go ahead.
I'm bringing it up because the award is named after a yeshiva student named Ari Halberstam.
The son of the woman who runs the museum.
Right, and I guess the woman had voiced concern to us that she was upset that you weren't there on time.
She spoke extensively before introducing me and expressed great appreciation. I've never heard that from her. I know I've known her for years and years and years, never heard that. Anna.
This is a bit of a long question, so just bear with me.
All right, I'll get my pillow.
Yeah. And your alarm clock, hopefully, too.
And my alarm clock, all the above.
A veteran South Bronx social worker said that the city coerced her into signing an agreement denying her affiliation with the Podolsky brothers, the owners of the buildings that the city wanted to purchase. She believes the city forced her into making a false statement by signing that document because they wanted to keep this deal a secret. What's happening here? Have you heard about this? Is it true?
I've never heard anything about this.
Okay. I mean, does that concern you?
Again, I'm not going to take it on face value. No disrespect to you. I need to know what it's about. Never heard anything like it. We'll look into it. Willie?
On the measles question again, you have a long relationship with the Orthodox.
Yes.
Can you talk about how that played into the decision-making around the whole measles issue? Did it make it easier? Did it make it more difficult? Were there conflicts?
No, I think what happened in this case, there weren't conflicts, actually. The original trajectory, you heard about it Tuesday, was that we had more cases than usual, but an aggressive effort to deal with it. And the real turning point, as you heard, was around Purim, where we saw a big uptick, and that got very worrisome. But previously, the outreach, according to the deputy mayor and according to the health commissioner in our conversations, the outreach was going well, the response was going well. I used that Borough Park example. That's the community I used to represent, that they saw a problem, they got out there, a lot of community cooperation from leadership, and the problem got addressed, and there's basically no cases in Borough Park anymore. In Williamsburg, what became clear only really recently was how strong these anti-vaccination voices were. They were not the mainstream. They were not the major organizations. They were small, apparently grassroots, just individual parents organizing among other parents, and obviously influenced by some of the national voices, very inaccurate voices. But those voices loom larger than I think anyone expected, and so we had to double down. And that's why we went to the emergency order.
Relationships in the community factoring at all in your ability to...
It wasn't me. It was the health department and the deputy mayor and everyone, and our team at City Hall who have those relationships for sure, and they found a lot of cooperation. Okay, hold on. I see 4, and I'm going to do 4. Okay, go ahead.
Has it gotten to the point where you have to call on the state and federal government to help the measles outbreak?
No, look, at this point, I believe this very stern action will have an impact. I believe people are getting the message rapidly, and we're getting a lot of cooperation. And I believe we will solve this problem, but it's going to take some work over these next days for sure. Gloria.
So on that as well, are there any plans to do anything sort of, I know you've been doing outreach for several weeks now, but why not do something, set up a place where people can go get the vaccines? Are there any plans to do anything like that? Well,
we said on Tuesday that anyone can call 311 and be directed to a neighborhood location. And the outreach workers are certainly making clear you can go in the neighborhood. If you're insured, you're already covered. If you're not insured, you pay what you can or you don't pay at all if you don't have the resources. So that's the entire outreach effort, to say, here's where you can go. And again, I think it's working.
I was hoping for a little more clarity on the preparations for the NYC win issue. You said it didn't rise to your level. Was the first deputy mayor handling this? Was it the...
We're going to do a whole diagnostic. As you can imagine, there's all sorts of technical things that don't get to the CEO level. So we're going to find out what happened and why and fix it. But we're right now less concerned about that and more concerned about fixing the immediate problem. That's be the focus the next couple of days. Rich?
Mr. Mayor,
do you want to talk about Eric Phillips' fashion choices? Is that your question?
I think he's...
Okay, see, this is what your tonight's report is going to be. I guarantee it. Go ahead.
It's totally splendid.
Oh, God. I can't believe you're going on this high note. It's wrong.
So, Mr. Mayor, Bernie Sanders recently has acknowledged that he is a millionaire. Do you think that hurts him with progressives at all in the party?
I think people look at someone for what they believe in and what they've done. I think that's what really matters. My view is, obviously, as someone who's been putting out my tax forms for a long time, everyone put their tax forms out, starting with the President of the United States. That would be really nice. And let people judge, but I don't think that's what they primarily judge by. I think they judge by, deeds first. What have you done? And then what do you believe in? I think that's really the way people make their decisions. Thanks, everyone.